November is here. We Talk Fantasy is here, and we're proud to open this up talking about one of our proud sponsors, Mohawk Honda. November, December, the holiday months. What are you going to do for the holidays this season? Do something special for somebody in your life by getting them a new ride. Help them through the process. We can help you already with Mohawk Honda because we know the people there. Shout out to Greg Johnson, always a great part of doing these great things in the community, helping people, having inventory for you wherever you're listening across upstate New York. Mohawk Honda, Freeman's Bridge Road there in Glenville. Say what's up to Cam McKenna. Just helped my mom through the process all the way from Syracuse, get a new vehicle, whether it's Hot Sauce, Jake Doyle, Lindsay Harden, anybody from Mohawk Honda. John in service, they're always taking care of people here in upstate New York, and they want you to do the same. Don't forget the Kelly Blue Book offer, or you can drive in your ride and walk off the lot with cash in your pocket that same day. That's what Mohawk Honda can do for you. So the Kelly Blue Book offer, wonderful people in service, great sports fans, and just people who are giving you the best deal in inventory. It all happens at Mohawk Honda. Proud sponsors of right here, We Talk Fantasy. We don't know how their fantasy football game is. Nobody wanted to show up and step into the Godzilla Media League this year. Maybe 2022, someone's bold enough to take us on. Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you. Guys, we get right into it because we've got massive fantasy football news. It involves Derrick Henry outpacing the running backs in fantasy football by double digits plus. The news comes down. Henry out for the season for the Tennessee Titans. Chet, I'm going to start with you. What does this impact mean for fantasy football managers who have the beast, 22, King Henry on their rosters no longer?
I mean, this is the biggest fantasy news of the year easily. Maybe the biggest one of the past couple of years, just because we've seen some huge injuries early on in seasons, thinking of the Saquon Barkley, the David Johnson. This guy was clearly RB1 midway through the season, likely got you into a playoff race. You're feeling good, and it all just came crumbling down. And now you're left to hopefully have somebody on your bench. Now we get into the discussion of who's going to fill the void left by the king. We're going to have a new rushing champ. This guy was on an unbelievable pace. We had said he was built different. He is built different. But finally, a freak injury, and now we're all left trying to figure out what to do next.
For those who aren't listening to us on the YouTube side, Apple, Spotify, we appreciate you listening there, but please do yourself a favor. Go to YouTube so you can see the great Kyle Ray decked out in his Michigan State Spartan gear after the big win over the rival Michigan Wolverines. Ray, I'll go to you now. Your thoughts about King Henry, Derrick Henry, no longer part of fantasy rosters, what managers can do.
I mean, what's there to say? It's really crappy. We all talked a lot about this usage stuff. You saw it with CMC. Like we said, Henry is built differently, but did that finally rear its ugly head and just getting the ball 25, 30 times a game, that finally start wearing him down? And I had a really interesting conversation with a coworker of mine, and I am one who doesn't. I don't know why I don't believe this, and I really don't understand. I don't get my mind in it. But fresh legs is a real thing, and you've seen it with Dearness Johnson. You've seen it a little bit with this Gore kid for Kansas City last night. He looked good running the ball, and maybe a lot of teams need to start looking at that direction. It is crazy. I am not a fan of the two-back systems. Being a Bills fan, seeing Singletary and Moss, there's no rhythm, there's no rhyme, no reason. But you can't give a running back in this day and age where people are bigger, stronger, faster. And now people's fantasy seasons are kind of insanely, in some cases, decimated. Henry was a top 3 pick. You literally just lost a running back of maximum potential. And if you didn't somehow get a handcuff, and kind of like the headline, if you're on the YouTube side, is including the Peterson stuff, do you have McNichols? Did you get Peterson? What does that look like? Because you could be in serious running back trouble right now, because if you were the first pick in a snake draft, you got Henry, and then you waited another 19 to 24 picks before you got to take another player, and more than likely, you're now scraping the bottom of the barrel for a running back. So definitely sucks. Going to be huge to see how some of those fantasy managers reclaim their season. I don't have Peterson, but I will say that I think McNichols is the play over Peterson, at least for the first couple weeks. We'll see how Peterson plays out and learns the offense, but definitely worth grabbing, obviously, McNichols for that. And if you got lucky, maybe hopefully you had his handcuff.
Yeah, the McNichols thing is fascinating of how the Titans are going to use him because it's such a question mark, especially the different styles in which those backs are. And just back to the Henry thing, for fantasy football managers who had Derrick Henry on their roster, look, sports is filled with excuses, maybe more so than any other entertainment side. If you play sports, well, if we had a hit here, if we had a catch there, we would have won. If you wager on sports, oh, if they didn't run this play or that play, trust me, my goal is this week to mention how I went 0 for 8 on my wagers this week. And it truly a remarkable feat that I went 0 for 8. But I got a lot of excuses. And fantasy is the same way, right? How often do you play somebody in fantasy? They're like, well, if I started this guy or if this guy wasn't on a bye week, guess what? If you had Henry and you're in first place and you don't win your league and your excuse is Derrick Henry got hurt, it's a legitimate excuse. You are not backing out. It's not a coward move. You're not trying to backpedal. No. Like, that's the answer. And I wish I could, like, sugarcoat it for managers. And if you're a good enough manager to win a championship post-Henry, send me the roster. Because like Kyle just said, this can knock out your championship. We're going to do our best to help you try to win it, but you have to, in similar fashion, we talked about McCaffrey back in September. You can do your best to try to hit that number, but you're likely not going to hit it. The quicker you accept you're not going to put up those numbers weekly is the best opportunity that you can have to at least rebalance your lineup. Let's go back to the McNichols-Peterson thing because Kyle mentioned McNichols, fine player, but probably the spot where he's in his career, probably a third stringer, and now he's just been pushed to action. I want to go to something that Chet had left a message with us, and I believe in big, bold cap letters, ripping apart fantasy football sites, and this is likely happening to you listening right now in your league. Chet, what's your biggest issue with the comparison to ESPN and Yahoo and maybe other leagues what went on with Adrian Peterson?
Well, I think Kyle actually debunked what my original concern was. So what I had seen was in certain leagues, people had added Adrian Peterson. And this is after the news that Schefter had broke that sources say they've signed. And but then other leagues, he was already in the waiver system, and you couldn't add him until the waivers hit tomorrow. And so I was trying to figure out, like, whoa, was ESPN allowing ads and Yahoo's not? But what had happened was these smart managers, the second they got wind of Peterson, they added him before any designation was given. So essentially he was still a free agent, and we had not played Monday Night Football yet. So those managers, props to them. They were on top of it, and they got Peterson before the waiver wire stuff all happened. So I think every site was still on the same page. At first I was like, whoa, what a huge advantage to be on ESPN right now. So I think they handled that right, because free agents shouldn't go to the waiver claim if we haven't finished the week yet, because you can always add players that are on the Monday night game if you want to drop somebody or if you have an extra spot on your roster. So I think they did it the best way they can. And the second it becomes official that he's a Tennessee Titan, then he has to go into the waiver because the Titans already played.
And just to clarify, so Kyle, you said, I'll let you go on this one. You said you would not pick up Peterson yet, and Chet, that same question to you. Would you both consider picking up Peterson as soon as this week?
Yes.
I think you still consider him. I would not be starting him because we have no idea what that backfield's going to look like. If you had to go into a situation where you need to start a running back, I would lean more towards McNichols just because he is the running back that is there right now. I don't think you start Peterson now just because he doesn't. Maybe it's a simple offense. Who knows? But you don't know the offense. He's literally going to have 6 days to prepare for a Sunday football game. Like, I don't see you starting him. I see you starting McNichols if you get him over Peterson right now, and then wait till next week and the following week and see what plays out.
I agree. I think that's the right play. I wouldn't feel comfortable starting Peterson right away because we have no idea what his workload will look like in week one or his first week with the team. I will say, the guy's a veteran. Like, he's going to be able to pick it up. Concepts for running backs are not that crazy. It's like, dude, running the A gap, B gap, C gap, block this guy, stay next to me. He'll figure it out pretty quickly. But I'd imagine McNichols is going to get majority of the time on the field in this first one. But this kind of goes back to what we talked about. I had no idea this was going to happen. But now we get to really see what a handcuff looks like for Derrick Henry. And I don't think McNichols, I don't think Peterson will have RB2 value consistently. But I think their flex plays, their dart throws, bye week desperation, like those guys are going to get done. I just don't see them being a Chuba Hubbard, a Mike Davis a year ago, and Alexander Madison. I don't think those guys are it.
Before we move on to what does this do to A.J. Brown? Because who knows what this run game is going to look like. And we saw the vulnerability when the Titans had to go one-dimensional and really try to throw in some situations. And they weren't doing play action. They were doing 3-step and 5-step drops. And now what do defenses start laying off and saying, hey, I'll let you try to run the ball. You don't have the king to run me over. I'm not going to make a life or death situation by tackling Derrick Henry. I'm going to be able to play A.J. Brown with a linebacker in middle coverage as he's trying to do a slant to force Tannehill to take another second. Like, I'm interested to see what this does to that whole Titans offense and everybody around it.
I would think it would improve for those guys on the outside because they have to lean on it more. Just back to the Peterson thing you guys both said too. You both agreed that you'd claim him. I'll even go one step further. Jordan Rodon, who covers the Giants, I don't know if you guys have this happen, whether it's friend conversations. I know you guys do because we talk about Doritos a lot involving a certain quarterback. Sometimes there are certain grudges you hold because you're so confident that you're going to get your opinion right. I call it a semi-disagreement, maybe an argument, maybe a back and forth with ESPN reporter Jordan Rodon years ago about Adrian Peterson. This was before the Giants drafted Saquon Barkley. And I said, Jordan, why don't they just get Adrian Peterson? He's like, guys, he's old. Adrian Peterson's done. He goes, he's going to retire. They have no value in Adrian Peterson. Now, what is that, 5 years ago at this point? and I remembered that because I thought, you know what? And this kind of goes to the fantasy point. You both said, look, he's likely not going to be in your lineup week 9. But if I had to seriously pick one quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end over the last 15 years in fantasy, that if you told me he had 6 days to prepare, who could likely score the most amount of points and be ready, I would actually pick Adrian Peterson because he's a freak, like a genetic freak. Like Chet said, hey, the play's 44 ISO. You know where the 4-hole is, right? get behind there and run. So it's likely when we're recording this on a Tuesday night, you're not going to start Peterson. But God, if you're crushed with bye weeks and you need to roll the dice, Adrian Peterson actually fantasy relevant for Washington when he was out there. He wasn't terrible by any stretch. He was in lineups when he played for Washington. So
he always fell in the damn end zone.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, like, I think that's what it's going to look like. I think we're going to see Adrian Peterson inside the 10. Like, let him just run straight forward and try to bulldoze people similar to Derrick Henry. Like, I don't really think that's McNichols' game. So I could see, like, you won't even see Peterson on the field between the 20s. But when you get inside there and it's first and goal, we're gonna try to be the same type of team that we were with Derrick Henry. We're gonna try to bully ball you into the end zone, and that's where Peterson's value is. He's going to be completely touchdown dependent because he's not a pass catcher. He's not going to be breaking off 20+ yard runs. He is going to be fall forward for 5 yards and try to get in the end zone.
We've got some questions coming up in our Johnstone Supply in Troy mailbag. It's become the Keeper Dynasty questions all the time. We're going to get to that in a second. But I have a little curveball I want to throw at you guys before we get to that, the waiver wire, the starts and sits. Because we're halfway through the season. Like, we've already talked about the Chiefs offense, which isn't good. We've talked about some injuries. But I'm just going to toss 3 names up on the screen right now. Josh Allen, Austin Eckler, which might be the time in which God spells a name wrong during the graphics. I believe I spelled that right.
You did.
And Cooper Kupp, okay? Allen, Eckler, Kupp. I'll give you a number. 0, 1, 2, or 3. How many of those guys below do you think will finish at number 1 in their respective position by the end of this year's regular season? Now that Henry's out, the number 1 running back in fantasy is up in the air. Josh Allen at certain sites can bet him to win the MVP in the NFL for fantasy. Mahomes has looked bad. Cooper Kupp is on a ridiculous streak, and Von Miller is now a Ram. If you had to take that list right there, 0, 1, 2, or 3, how many of those guys do you think would actually end up at number 1 at their respective positions? If you want, I will go first. If you guys want me to go first.
Go first.
3. I think all 3 of these guys, I think it's done right now in November. If I had to take it, I would take these 3 guys as the favorite to top all the positions. All right, let's start with Eckler first because I think he's the most fascinating. Eckler is sitting around Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor. Those are some of the running backs we're probably going to talk about taking over for Derrick Henry. Christian McCaffrey's hurt. Saquon Barkley's hurt. Unless you guys think there's another name that I'm missing that might take over the running back field. Alvin Kamara, possibly now with Jameis Winston being injured. Maybe Kamara can make the move and be the number 1 back. But Austin Eckler is going to be on a Charger team that's competing for the playoff berth. They're going to rely on catches out of the backfield, especially in PPR leagues. Austin Eckler has lived up to the hype. I think it was both of you guys who loved, especially Kyle, I think loved Eckler in the preseason, that Eckler seems to be the guy that can break through. On the Bills side, Josh Allen, Mahomes, what the hell's happening? Like, is he hurt? Is he injured? I don't get it. I don't get it with Mahomes. He was so terrible on Monday night, just missing open guys. Do I think Tom Brady's going to finish as the number one fantasy guy? Stafford, the Rams are so good. They actually might not throw the ball that much in the fourth quarter when we get closer to the season. The NFC West isn't as good. Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts. I mean, they're mobile quarterbacks, not big guys. Maybe rushing touchdowns put them over the top. And if that's the way I lose, guess what? Josh Allen could do that same thing too. So I would go Allen, Eckler, and Cooper Kupp's the toughest one. Because, guys, we've talked about wide receivers all over the place, from Mike Williams to Cooper Kupp, and I'm sure Jamar Chase might get back in the mix, but I'm not taking a rookie. Holy cow with Deebo Samuel. But Cooper Kupp has the chance to break the single-season receiving record. So I think right now in November, those three are locked. I would take three, Allen, Eckler, and Kupp, to be the top three guys in those positions.
I'm actually only going to go one, and I think it's only Cooper Kupp that's going to finish as the number one. I know exactly what you guys are thinking, like who's going to take over for Austin Eckler. Jonathan Taylor has absolutely slapped me in the face this year. I wanted to stay away from him. The offensive line that got decimated, the question at quarterback. He's up a lot of rushing yards, and he is only down 40 receiving yards to Austin Eckler. Eckler's got, I think, 12 more catches than him. But I think Taylor's going to continue. And then, again, another guy that slapped all three of us in the face, Joe Mixon, is having a great year. And the Chargers have been very vulnerable over the last couple of weeks. Eckler has fallen into the end zone. He's been a focal point. But I still like Taylor and Mixon to potentially overtake him. And then, again, I think he's sandwiched in there. You still got Aaron Jones. You still got Alvin Kamara. You still got Darrell Henderson, too, who's been getting a lot of receptions out of the backfield. So I don't think Eckler will. I could see it happening. But Allen, though, I worry about Allen for one thing, and it is his schedule coming up. He has a cupcake schedule. I mean, you got the Jacksonville. You got the Jets twice. You got the Patriots, who a lot of people – the Bills should run away with those games, and either Allen will score 20 early and he'll be out of the game, or they'll just start running the ball. So – that's my only concern with
can't run the ball.
You're not wrong there. But Allen won't be given the opportunities to throw and run up his fantasy point totals. So that's the only thing that scares me about Allen a little bit, is the schedule coming up. And then Cooper Kupp, I think, is the clear cut going to be the number one. He has blown away the receptions right now. He is one off the lead behind Tyreek. He's got 63 receptions for 924 yards going into week 9. Over 100 yards a game. He has double-digit receiving touchdowns already with 10. I mean, the dude has been phenomenal. I don't think he's got a 30-point lead against the next closest wide receiver. So give me Cooper Kupp to stay the number one. But I do think Allen and Eckler, I think they'll both finish top 3. But I think Eckler might get caught, and then I don't think Allen will stay at number one once Tom Brady falls a little bit, because I don't think he'll stay at top there. Chet does not like that answer.
Well, I'm doing math and my head hurts. That's my thinking face for anybody watching on the YouTube. I'm also going to go with 1. I'm saying Josh Allen finishes at 1. The quarterbacks around him, Tom Brady is so touchdown dependent, and he's been throwing a lot of freaking touchdowns. But the guys around him don't have me that concerned. I think Josh Allen, you're right, Kyle, they could be up big, but I mean, he had a 3-touchdown second half against the Dolphins this past week. There's going to be certain game scripts where they're going to need him to play meaningful football in the second half. But I like Josh Allen there. A name that we haven't mentioned for the running back, how about Najee Harris? An absolute workhorse who's only behind by a couple points in terms of average. He already has his bye week. Did Eckler already have his bye? He did, right?
Yes.
By Mageddon. That's right. But that's a guy that's been used so much in the Steelers offense as a pass catcher, as a rusher. There's no doubt who's going to get the goal line work. Like, he is a true workhorse running back, which with Austin Eckler, we saw that massive run this past week from Justin Jackson. Like, they have guys that they like to work into that offense where it's only Najee Harris in Pittsburgh. So he's a guy that might be able to make a push. I like Kyle's pick with also, was it Joe Mixon? There's other guys around there that I could see overtaking Eckler. And for wide receiver, I still think Devontae Adams finishes at 1. I did the math, and that's why I was drooling while Kyle was talking, doing math. He's down by 60 points right now, partially because he had COVID or was in the COVID protocol and missed a game. So with my math, Adams has to outscore Kupp by 6 points per game the rest of the way to catch him. I think he can do it. I think Devontae Adams is still one of the best receivers in football, who has one of the best quarterbacks in football, with one of the least amount of competition to catch the ball in Green Bay. Like, there are going to be games, and we've seen a little bit of it, where they're going to go to Robert Woods. They're going to go to Van Jefferson. They're going to go to Tyler Higbee. They're going to run the ball and throw the ball at Darrell Henderson. Like, there's a ton of weapons in LA. Green Bay, Tunyon just got hurt. MVS has been hurt. Allen Lazard is like the biggest competition to Devontae Adams, going over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns every week. So I think Devontae Adams could still finish as 1.
Can we also talk about this guy real quick?
No. Oh, he's at 12?
I actually
going to keep his shirt on?
I thought Chet was going to say, I had a big smile on my face when he said, I thought this guy's going to finish 1. I thought he was going to say Mike Williams.
No, he's had me a little concerned the last couple of weeks.
The shirt's staying on, it looks like.
What was your
one thing that gives me hope is the Chargers have played really bad.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been getting the ball. Do the math. Figure out that offense to get back to the way you were. Start throwing it deep again to Mike Williams.
Mm-hmm.
To clarify, it was top 5, correct?
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was worth a shot.
You're getting
All right, let's get into the Johnstone Supply and Troy mailbag questions for the week. If you want to be a part of the show, we talk fantasy on Twitter, guys at GodzillaMedia.com. We always share our social media handles on every Apple and Spotify episode and on YouTube. Johnstone Supply in Troy. If you are looking to make that move this winter to make sure your home is heated properly, to update the furnace, to make sure the air filters are okay, to have more efficiency, to save some cash and more, the place for you is Johnstone Supply in Troy. We're talking about a family-owned and operated business that's been helping people in the capital region for decades plus. My guy, George, 2 times he's been on Getting There with Goz. You want to hear more about the story of Johnstone Supply in Troy? They can help you. 6th Avenue in Troy. Stop into the store. Say what's up to our guy, Tom, who is in our fantasy football league. He's dancing around the playoffs. He's not 8-0 like Chet Davis is, but he's still got a pretty good team right now. 8-0 Chet is in the Godzilla Media League. Wait potentially for that belt to come all the way.
Can I get a woo?
Woo! Heating, air conditioning, ventilation needs, and more. Call Johnstone Supply in Troy today. 518-272-5922. 518-272-5922. Johnstone Supply in Troy, making sure your house is heated properly for those cold winter months on the way. All right, we go to the mailbag. Josh, you guys might remember Josh. Josh is always about his keeper and dynasty plays. Josh R. on Facebook loves asking about this. So he's got a lot of questions here, and I appreciate all the questions. So I'm going to sum this up to, I think, and make it easier for everybody to do it like this. Josh goes, hey, guys, I got a lot of players I'm considering for my dynasty league. Question, what draft picks would I look like to build? I'm going to do this instead, Josh. I'm going to give these guys a list of players, and I'm going to have you pick which one is the most valuable for your dynasty team's future, okay? I'm going to give Chet and Kyle 6 players, and they got to pick for a dynasty league which one is most valuable for the future.
Oh, we were saying this is just like one of those keepers where you just get to keep them at no cost or penalty, but based on previous ADP, that kind of thing.
He asked for draft picks, but I think not knowing the size of the league, it's a little too hard to figure that out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're saying, value becomes a loaded word, but we'll try to do our best.
Yeah. George Kittle, Chris Carson, James Conner, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans, and shit nuts himself, Laviska Shenault.
Dude, burn it down. Burn the whole thing. You ever seen that Kevin Garnett clip with the late great I'm drawing a blank on his name now. The NBA reporter that always dressed head to toe.
Oh, Craig Sager. Burn it. Yeah, burn that.
Yeah, burn it. Your shoes, your tie, your belt, burn it. Holy hell. I mean, I think it's actually kind of, oh God.
If that's the answer, tell them that. Like, look, Josh, reset it. Go get some rookies, burn all the picks, and go get rookies in 2022.
There's some players there that are like on a year-to-year basis, yeah, but they're all getting kind of. I mean, Mike Evans is the name that really jumped out to me. That he's consistent enough, even though it's kind of been Chris Godwin for most of the year. Kittle, I need to see him. Like, he's been hurt so much, and that's what scares me about Kittle. And then everyone else, no. Chris Carson's been hurt back-to-back years. He's getting up there in years for a running back. Yeesh.
Yeah, I'm very similar to Chet. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate, though, because there were a lot of rumors swirling around OBJ and what his future looks like and what his dad did with posting every time Baker's missed OBJ. Might want to keep an eye on if he gets traded somewheres. Maybe give him a shot if he goes to, like, a Seattle, or does he go to a Kansas City? Can he rejuvenate himself there? Who knows? That would be the only one that I'm sitting there saying, hang on, let's see what happens in the offseason if you don't have to do your keepers until later in the offseason. I'm with Chet, though. Mike Evans, maybe, but
most consistent, like good situation with Brady. Up down beast.
I might consider Kittle. Might under like if it's not costing you any specific draft picks. I mean, he is a legitimate tight end when he's healthy. It's probably going to be the Trey Lance show next year, and then it's going to be between Deebo Samuel and George Kittle. I mean, but I think the only one that you're really going to be able to keep any sort of consistency with is going to be OBJ if he gets traded.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too, right? You're talking dynasty leagues. If you want to even deal some of these guys, you guys both nailed this well. Kittle, no one's going to overpay for him. Here's the other really frustrating part about it. Like, you could look at this team and say preseason during the draft, man, this team is good. You look at this team, like you draft them, you're thinking like, okay, I got Chris Carson, I got George. Like, the roster, you heard the players. You probably are super pumped in August for this team. But I don't even know who in your league would want these guys. So, like you guys all said, I love Chris Carson when he's healthy. Love George Kittle when he's healthy. James Conner might be the one he can trade because people might think next year he's as good. This is about the max he can get on Conner. He's got rocking the single digit now. I don't see him having a better fantasy season for the rest of his career. The Odell Beckham Jr. take you had, I mean, every year we're going to keep doing this with Odell, aren't we? We're just going to be like, okay, he's going to be good maybe next year. Shenault, we've already talked about. He's doing nothing with Trevor Lawrence. Maybe a new coach is in there. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I don't know if you're going to be able to move off a lot of these guys for picks for other people. I don't know who's going to – like Mike Evans maybe is the one you can get somebody to bite on, thinking Brady's going to have a breakout for a playoff run, but I don't like it, man.
Do you try – I think maybe do you even look at trying to trade Mike Evans right now to get draft capital for next year so that you can get a second two or something like that in draft?
There you go. A second. If you could get Mike Evans for a second round, or hell, if you got to compromise and go to a fourth, and that's the best you can get out of that, hey, I got Mike Evans for a fourth round pick, fine. You can piece together some wide receivers somewhere else and, free agency and stuff.
I would try to be real bold and go for a two, and the only reason I'm saying a two is because it's gonna, or excuse me, even a three. It's gonna be an early three.
Yeah.
If you're giving him to a playoff team, so 2 or 3 is where I'd probably draw the line on Evans.
So we've got some situations. Appreciate Josh always writing in. And again, if you've got questions about dynasty leagues, keeper leagues, trade deadline, we touched on this a little bit last week. The trade deadlines are all over the place in leagues, but some people are already looking forward to next season. We love those type of questions, especially in our mailbag. It's a lot of fun kind of projecting where the future is going to go. Well, speaking about the projections in the future and where things are going to go, if you've survived the Buymageddon the last couple of weeks, maybe you've looked towards the waiver wire and tried to wonder, hey, what exactly are we going to do here on the waiver wire? Who are we going to pick up? Kyle, we've always let you take the lead on the waiver wire, and it feels like at times for weeks, it almost feels like a punishment to you that you've got to sift through the trash that is the wide receiver, running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks. This week, we've already kind of spoiled the best one, Adrian Peterson. Besides Peterson, anybody else out there in waiver land we should keep an eye on?
Mr. Brian Edwards. Very unfortunate news coming out of Las Vegas with Ruggs. DUI that involved a fatality that he was responsible for. That is a minimum of 2 to 20 years in prison. So Ruggs will not be playing football, I think, ever again. Brian Edwards is going to be a beneficiary. Obviously, if you have Hunter Renfrow or can pick him up, Renfrow is going to be the number one option. He has been the most popular. So I think Hunter Renfrow would be number one. But Brian Edwards is going to be a solid play. The dude, when you look at him, he's a wide receiver, 58.5 point PPRs, but he has had some flashes. His target share is only going to go up now. And then obviously you want to look at the tight ends. If you can somehow get your hands on Darren Waller, you're definitely going to want to do that. Another one I'm going to continue to look at, which I actually didn't realize how low his owner percentage was. Van Jefferson is available in a lot of leagues, and I don't know why I've never really realized that. I think because in all the leagues that I have, he's actually rostered.
How many rosters is he on for you? Because he's on one of mine now because of you.
He's in 2 of 3 of them, and that's what, like, somebody just dropped him for Mr. Peterson, which I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, who dropped Van Jefferson? Like, he's wide receiver 40. He's a legitimate flex play. He has put up some very big duds, but I mean, he's getting targets. He's in a pass-heavy offense. So I also do like Van Jefferson. We've obviously talked about McNichols and Peterson. And then a quarterback that, I can't believe I'm going to say this, is going to be, I think, a decent play coming up for 3 out of the next 4 weeks is Mr. Carson Wentz. He has got the Jets this week, followed by Jacksonville. Then you're going to want to bench him against the Bills. But then you might need to play him against Tampa Bay, who's had a banged-up secondary. And then he's got Houston. Then he's got his bye. Then he goes to New England, Arizona, Vegas. That's a solid upcoming weeks where he's a legitimate starter. And I would say 8 of those weeks, maybe 7. I think a guy to keep your eye on is Carson Wentz. He's available in a ton of leagues. And he had a decent game last week. See where that takes him from there. And then from the tight end spot, Mr. Pat Firemuth finally coming along over the last couple weeks, going into the bye against Seattle, 7 targets. Coming out of the bye against Cleveland, another 7 targets and a touchdown. So his target share has drastically gone up. So somebody keep an eye on if you are in need of tight end depth. Firemuth might be a solid fantasy play going into these next couple weeks, where the Steelers are going to have to get into some of the meat and bones of their schedule and win some games in order to get a playoff berth. But those are kind of what I was looking at with the waiver wire. I mean, McNichols, Peterson are your running backs. That is literally the only ones that I can really find out there. I think you want to look at Las Vegas. You want to look at Van Jefferson, Wentz, and Firemuth.
There are some huge things out of this waiver wire. So you did a great job with those picks, because thinking about how much deeper it has sounded in comparison to what we talked about in late September, early October, when you truly think about the waiver wire this week, and I don't think I'm overstepping when I say this, this is a season-defining week on the waiver wire. Let's start with Pat Firemuth, who played against the matchup above me. So I'm watching these scores get updated. I'm like, who the hell? Why is he scoring? And I text again. I'm like, who the hell is Pat Firemuth? He's like, oh, guys, you don't know. This is going to win me manager of the year. And I'm like, if you picked him up last week, or if he's still sitting out there, that's a manager of the year type of move, because that's the difference he's been having at the tight end position, where he's going to be the guy you're the most proud of. I love talking about in fantasy because there is stuff to brag about, and there's your brag about pick if you're able to pick him up. Carson Wentz, let's sit on that for a second, because he has been bad at times in his career. And I know for a fact on this podcast, I've ripped Carson Wentz and said, like, was he ever good? He has gotten a lot better. He had a dumb throw against Tennessee. Cost him the game, arguably. That dumb pick 6 he throws in the back of the end zone.
Mm-hmm.
But those matchups you just laid out there, you put Wentz on your roster right now. This is one of these situations where if you've got a quarterback, Jalen Hurts might not be the best example, but somebody like between that 7 and 14 range, where if you're really weak, and here we go back to Derrick Henry again, right? if you've suffered an injury to a Henry, McCaffrey, Barkley, Calvin Ridley, who has just left the Falcons. If you've lost one of your impact players from draft day and you think you can deal a quarterback on your roster, handcuffs not the right term, but just rostering Carson Wentz, there's the move we've been waiting for all podcasts that can win you a championship. You play those matchups with Carson Wentz. You upgraded another position by trading somebody in your league, that starting quarterback you have on your roster, for an impact skill guy and getting Wentz. There you go. There's how you can slowly make up those points. Love the Carson Wentz thing. Just be prepared. He will make dumb plays.
Yep.
He will make some stupid things that you're going to scream at your phone and television about. You did say something about Darren Waller that I want to follow up on that I found very, very interesting. Okay. So you mentioned the Henry Ruggs thing. You mentioned Bryan Edwards. You mentioned going after Waller. Now, maybe it's a two-part thing. Did you mean if you're a manager who is weak at skill or tight end to attempt to trade for Waller, or if you're a manager who has Waller to field offers, or both? Like, if should Darren Waller be considered for both of those sides, buying and selling over the next few weeks?
I definitely think he should be considered for both. My point was more just with all the issues that are going to be coming through Las Vegas. It was definitely a bad spot for it in the waiver wire. But I mean, if you're at a good spot, like for instance, in one of my leagues, I have Waller. I also have Firemuth. I mean, like I said, over these next couple of weeks, I do like Firemuth. Can I sell Waller high? Can I get a legitimate wide receiver or running back for Waller who's getting a ton of targets and only do I lose 5 points a game at the tight end spot to gain 8 points per game at the wide receiver spot? I think those are kind of the things you need to look at, and those are some of your selling points. And at the same time, if you're desperate, if you've gone through some of these injuries and you're like, I need to make a splash, go after Waller. Try to figure out a way to get him and put him on your team to hopefully make up some ground for some injuries that you had, and know that there's a good chance he's going to get more targets somehow with the targets that he's already getting and get you more points.
That's exactly it on Waller. This is why Darren Waller is, if he's on your roster and you start looking across your league, just ask somebody, hey, you interested in Waller? Because of what you just said there, of the combination of his targets potentially can move, or even this. People would know about the Ruggs story. And Henry Ruggs, from a fantasy perspective, is basically a bye-week slot flex guy. You know, he's not a top 30, and if he's not even rostered in smaller leagues, that's not even shocking to me. If you're in a 10-team league and Henry Ruggs is on free agency, on the waivers, that's not shocking to me. But what's going to happen is some of these amateur, novice, whatever term we want to use here for fantasy football managers, they're going to think, oh my God, Ruggs is out. Waller's going to be – it's really not going to have an effect on Waller,
right? But
it might have an effect mentally on people who think they want to get Darren Waller. So that's something we really be cautious of here, that if you've got a good team, another great spot where you can upgrade is to say, okay, someone's asking for a dumb price for Waller. I'm going to make a move. And I don't want to jump the gun here, but I kind of have to with our starts and sits coming up. And before we get to those, and one involves a Raider, that was my segue there. I want to give love to our newest sponsor here on We Talk Fantasy, Jared Lozier from Northeastern Insurance. November, December, the holidays, the 2022 season is just around the corner. What are you doing to save money? How are you helping your business? Could you be saving some more insurance on your car? Maybe something else in your home that's really valuable? Jared, 518-956-3753. Jared Lozier can help you at Northeastern Insurance to make sure those things are protected, to make sure that you're saving cash. Northeastern Insurance continues to help people across upstate New York. Now you can be a part of it. Just think about those things that are important to you in your life. Your car, your house, your investments, your family, your business, and more. You want to make sure that those things are insured. Northeastern Insurance, working with us here at Gods of the Media to make sure all the great things are happening. Now you can do the same. We're talking about somebody who's out golfing, Levac, and I always bring that up because if you want to hang out with him, you want to talk about the Indianapolis Colts, his squad, you want to talk about sports and more, he is the type of guy, who knows, once in a while he's hanging up at the Hideaway as well, too. That's our guy, Jared Lozier. Give him a call today. Something as simple as, hey, man, I just hit a huge parlay. I'm about to win my fantasy football league. I'm about to do something big. What do I do with my cash? Where do I put it? He'll tell you. 518-956-3753. 518-956-3753. Jared L, JAREDL at nemail.com. Shoot him an email. Talk to him. Jerry Lozier, the proud new part of We Talk Fantasy. All right, Chet Davis is currently on TV sabbatical. So at some point during these starts or sits, you may hear the wonderful tones of Chet Davis. But until then, Kyle, I'm going to lead off here on starts and sits. As you've noticed, the new theme here and the new version, the non-traditional setup of We Talk Fantasy, I like to just jump around. Back in the day, it used to be one quarterback to sit, one running back. But because we know rosters have gotten bigger and sometimes we just want to give you the information as quick as we can, we just tell the players to stay away from them to stay after. So, with that being said, and I'll give you the Raiders segue, Josh Jacobs, New York Giants, MetLife. Josh Jacobs may have been the player who's been in the starts and sits the most of all these when we go through previous episodes. The Giants are at the middle of the road, like 10th, 11th in fantasy football points allowed to running backs this season. But I love Jacobs. And I know he almost got hurt in that game against the Eagles. But if you watch the Kansas City game against the Giants, I don't know why Andy Reid refused to run the football. They were getting off 4, 5, 6, 7 yards a pop with Gore. So there you go. Kyle's flashing the number 7. What does that say? For those who don't know what that 7 stands for.
That's all I needed. I needed 7 goddamn yards. 7 damn yards. That's it. 7.
That's it.
I'm back. We're back.
And that's why I'm playing Josh Jacobs. And I feel like this guy is also in the mix. And maybe, I can't remember, Kyle, it might have been you or it might have been Chet. Didn't somebody recently play Myles Gaskin as one of their go-to starts recently, thinking that he would be the guy? Malcolm Brown's not out there. Tua's not playing well. The Dolphins get the Texans, and it feels as if the Dolphins should destroy the Texans, even though the Dolphins have been so bad this season. The Texans have allowed the 6th most fantasy football points to running backs this season. My new idea is I'm not going to pick bad teams to have good players have good games, but I'm not doing that. I like Jacobs, and I like Myles Gaskin to have 2 big games in the running back position this week. That's where I start with my starts this week.
Ooh, I'm struggling to kind of find some surprise starts here and there. A start that I'm actually that might surprise some people. I think Melvin Gordon is about to hit the start for the future kind of portion. Last week had 2 touchdowns. Week before had a touchdown. I mean, he's getting 10 carries a game. Javonte Williams went limping off the field a little bit. We'll have to keep an eye on that injury. I mean, I know he came back, but so did Derrick Henry playing through a broken foot. So we'll see what happens there. But I mean, going against Dallas, this is probably going to be a hot take here, but I think Dallas's defense is a little overrated in some areas. Their defense is so good from a fantasy perspective because they get turnovers because Diggs jumps routes and everything like that. But that defensive line is susceptible up the middle a little bit. So I think Melvin Gordon can probably pop off with another 12, 13-point game. I think he's going to be an excellent flex play. Or if you're in a position where you're running up against some buys, definitely a good RB2 start. My other start are going to be Buffalo Bills wide receivers this week going against Jacksonville. You got Manny Sanders, you got Cole Beasley, you got Stephon Diggs. I'm even going to go as far as starting Gabe Davis in the flex spot only for Gabe. But we saw what happened with when the Bills do their quick dump offense, they are an unstoppable offense. Cole Beasley, 10 or 12 catches this past week for 110 yards, and everything was a bang, bang, bang. Now Manny Sanders, you're going to say, Kyle, he got 0 points. Yeah, do you think Manny Sanders is going to get 0 points? Also note that when he played Miami in week 2, he got locked up for 2 receptions as well. And then Stephon Diggs, they're going to at some point just start feeding the ball to Steph Diggs. So if I'm in a position this week where I picked up Cole Beasley last week, I'm starting Beasley and Sanders in both my starting wide opposite spots. Because the Bills don't have a run game, Dable needs to get his head out of his ass and stop running the ball on first down. You need to pass to open the run, not run to open the pass with the Bills there, Dable. That doesn't take a genius. But if you're in a position where you need a wide receiver, I think either Beasley or Sanders is a great play. If you need a deep flex, throw Gabe in there. Gabe's been solid. He is one of those targets with Dawson Knox out, a big target that Josh will look for in the red zone. Definitely love all Bills wide receivers this week. And then if I had to reach real deep, Mike Gesicki. You can
The
play
legend. Kyle loves him. This is his guy, Gesicki.
He's getting there, guys. He's getting there. I mean, you can play him in the flex every week, and you're going to get 10 points out of him. And like guys noted, he's playing Houston. There is going to be so many opportunities. And does Tua get so pissed off that he's playing the Texans because he almost got traded to the Texans that he just tracked off? Who knows? But that's kind of where I'd start those starts. Like I said, I struggled a little bit this week finding some of those crazy good starts that I love and just didn't find a ton of them.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned the Bills there. Funny in the sense of ironic that I saw the green like you did. Sometimes you go through the notes, you see green, great matchup, green, great matchup. I'm like, where are all these greens coming from? And I'm talking about, especially the Yahoo players, they'll see the matchups on the Cole Beasley, Steph Diggs, Josh Allen. Okay. And that kind of leads to my sits here. And it's upsetting. It's probably the same mindset you had why it was so difficult to have these like bold, different, interesting takes, because this is the part traditionally in the season where someone off the waiver wire breaks out, where a rookie finally shines, where a backup player becomes, oh, maybe he's going to help me get the playoff berth. That's what we've seen for a long time, 5+ years. But 2021 NFL, those trends we're so used to isn't happening like it used to. So all these rookies, I'm telling you, sit all these guys. Trevor Lawrence, who back to that Bills game where, especially in survivor pools, let's hope. I got the Bills this week in survivor, and I started with 120 people. We're down to 20. Knock on wood. Come on, Bills. I need you this week. I need you, Buffalo, to stay in my survivor.
That one, guys.
Come on. Well, look, everybody took the Jets. The Bengals against the Jets last week. That knocked out about half my pool. So come on, Buffalo. That's right. I feel good about it. Again, 0 for 8 on my picks last week with the spread, but whatever. So bench Trevor Lawrence. I think they hate him. They hate Urban Meyer. It's terrible. Sorry, Trevor Lawrence fans. Not your week. Same at wide receiver. Devontae Smith. I know Chet loved him. Heisman Trophy winner. 5 in the last 8 weeks. He's posted single digits. Single digits. Devontae Smith we're talking about here, Chet, for our starts and sits. I'm done with all rookies. Benching Trevor Lawrence. Benching Devontae Smith, who's had 5 of 8 single-digit performances. And my other one's Kadarius Toney, Giant fan. Our pal Lindsay White's over at Back in the New York Groove, the newest Godzilla Media podcast. Lindsay, I know your newest episode was, I have faith in you. All I trust is Kadarius Toney. Help me, Kadarius Toney. He stinks. Okay, he's never healthy. He's overrated. Bench all the rookies. Lawrence, Smith, Toney, everybody. Bench them all.
Except for Jamar Chase.
Do not bench Jamar Chase. Let him play.
Again,
keep him out there.
Jamar Chase. Man, Devontae. I was off on that one. I thought he was going to be much better in Philadelphia. Seems like his size is a concern. Like they're just realizing if they can push him off the line, he's not going to get into his route the way he needs to. There's been a lot of lengthy receivers who've been able to get around that, but it seems like the learning curve is definitely there right now for Devontae. So he's got to stay on your bench for the foreseeable future because it's been good matchups. And they put up a ton of points last week, and he did nothing. So it's one of those, they played well without him doing well. It's never a good sign.
We were saying about the starts and the sits, both Kyle and I, that this is usually week 9, the fun week where a rookie breaks out, a backup who you think like, oh my God, is he going to get me to the playoffs? It's not like that this year. It just hasn't had that same type of real, true breakout. Same with the waiver wire. We said Carson Wentz can maybe potentially help you win a championship if you trade away your quarterback and you got to upgrade for somebody off that Henry spot with some great matchups coming up. Chet, anything stick out to you? Start sit-wise, waiver wire-wise. I'll let you just do one big group Chet Davis hug there. Just kind of a little hosh-posh, whatever you want to say into that microphone. You go right ahead.
Bench all the kickers. No. I think Kyle, should I bench Cordell Patterson?
Oh, you're gonna play. I can play the same card that you did when I got Devontae when I played Freeman.
Well, you're comparing Cordell Patterson to Devontae Freeman?
From what? From the point side of it, yes.
Oh my gosh, the guy has been nothing but consistent. He's a top 10 RB right now this season.
That's not my point, chat. I didn't like the matchup. He got a touchdown, which brought him from 8 points to 15 or whatever it was.
8 points is a pretty solid day without a touchdown.
And Freeman would have had 6 points without that touchdown.
Oh, my gosh.
That's my point. But carry on.
A 1-yard touchdown is a lot different than a 15-yard score, whatever it was.
Touchdown's a touchdown.
That's right. My gosh. It's
Tutties.
Out of here. Cordell Patterson is that one guy that, as you mentioned, guys, we haven't seen those guys break out on the waivers, the unexpected. He's the one guy. He really is. That he's been somehow a consistent. He's literally RB8 right now, if I'm not mistaken, in half-point PPR. It's unbelievable that this guy's finally found his career this late into his career on a new team. But yeah, I was taking a look at the matchups this week, and it is scary with some of the injuries that we've seen at the running back position and trying to figure out, like, if you don't have a top waiver pick, McNichols is going to be gone. And so now you're left to figure out, is Ty Johnson going to be a thing? Is that good? This is going to scare you guys. I might be starting a Jet this week.
Oh!
You said you wouldn't. You
I
liar.
don't even have a Jet on my roster. But I might have to pick one up. And his name is Jamison Crowder.
Yep.
Benny the Jet Rodriguez will get the start off the sandlot for you.
So that's going to be my one long shot pick for you guys. Is I have high hopes this week for Jamison Crowder and Mike White. That's how low things have gotten for some people who don't have DK Metcalf this week and whose bench is garbage. Give me Jamison Crowder over 5 points. That's all I'm hoping for.
I'll pick him over 9.
I think he can get 10. I think that it's a Thursday night game. Clearly the strategy with Mike White is dink and dunk, and that's Jamison Crowder to a T.
Yep.
You know, he trustworthy, quick routes. He can get open quickly. He's going to give you like 6 catches for 70 yards and maybe a touchdown.
Another thing, kind of to that point, I just looked. I didn't realize they were playing Indy. They had didn't Indy have a couple of their safeties get banged up? I know Kari Willis got banged up last game, and he was a solid.
I believe so. I believe so.
That 9 targets for Jameson. I actually really like that pick for a deep one.
Thank you, Kyle. I hope it works out because I'm going to need it.
Yeah, also one other thing to add, Chet, did you get any apology emails from the good people here in the Capital Region? The game of the week was Chet's Bengals. You know, Jets Bengals is incredible. Did anybody apologize to you about not hearing?
Who cares about the NFL investigation of the Washington football team? I'll release all my emails. I'm coming after a lot of people in the Capital Region that give me shit every week over something I have no control over. But I think some of the adjectives that were used to describe the Jets, horrid, pathetic, lousy, as reasons why the Jets should not be shown on TV. And what they do? They beat one of the best teams in the AFC based on record. Dude, how have the Jets beaten the Titans and the Bengals?
Let's not talk about it.
How?
Oh, also don't forget the Giants are playing the Raiders this week, which we talked about the matchup. That game will be airing on CBS ? Depending on.
I already got a lot of emails on that one as well. You Bills fans are the freaking worst. According to Bills fans, your Bills fans are the worst. According to Bills fans, they should be shown at all times every week, regardless of anyone else.
Hey, Bills fans, surprise, there's this thing called NFL Sunday Ticket. Get it if you can't watch the Bills. Just do it.
Yep. Don't watch CBS 6.
That's the perfect way to sum this up.
CBS 6 is the best.
CBS 6 is the best. Please don't email Chet. Just tweet us instead. Goodbye, guys. Catch you next week.
See ya.